The world is full of urban legends, remarkable stories that spread like viruses around the planet, mutating and evolving until no one can remember which ones are true and which ones are urban legends. In this episode called The Terrible Truth, you'll see 3 stories about ugly discoveries that turn lives upside down. First, aspiring models get a rude awakening when a Russian reality show leaves them hungry for much more than fame. Then, a divorce turns ugly when the sudden appearance of a child leaves everyone wondering who's the true father. And finally, a happily married woman tries to save her family after one night from her past returns to haunt her. Watch all 3 stories and decide which urban legends are true and which ones are false. Find out if you guessed right at the end of the show. First, it's a story we like to call Freak Show. For as long as she can remember, aspiring Russian model Alexandra Michaluk has always wanted to be in the spotlight.
Моя мечта всегда была попасть в Голливуд.
Little did she know, her biggest break would turn into the biggest nightmare of her life.
Готова была расплакаться просто. Я не понимала, как так могло произойти.
It would make Alex famous, but for all the wrong reasons. In 2006, Alex was a small city girl with big city dreams.
Люблю просматривать различные веб-сайты модельных агентств.
That's where she spots an ad for a new reality show. Could this be her big break?
Нажмите на ссылку, там появилась огромный особняк. Я хочу туда попасть.
The show is called Fame House. It has a familiar premise. Contestants are stuck in a house and pitted against each other in challenges.
И последний участник, который остается, выиграет все задания. Он получает огромный приз.
Alex submits her photos and contact information. She's amazed when the next day she gets a spot on the show.
Я была настолько рада. В моей голове сразу эти картинки всплыли. Да, это именно тот шанс, который мне поможет уехать из России.
She's given an address and told to show up a week later. Finally, the big day arrives, but something isn't right.
Первое впечатление у меня было, что, может быть, я ошиблась адресом. То, что я не туда приехала.
Inside, it only gets worse.
Просто все упало во мне, потому что я поняла, что это совсем не тот дом, о котором я мечтала и который я видела на веб-сайте.
Maybe this is all part of the game. Alex searches for clues.
Какие-то вещи лежали. Но я сначала подумала, что это вещи других участников проекта.
But no one is around. Has Alex made a terrible mistake? Just when she's starting to get worried, another contestant finally shows up. Then another, and another. The game is on. Despite the grim surroundings, Alex and the rest of the contestants settle in.
Пусть это будет не самый большой красивый дом, но это будет хорошая возможность пробиться в люди.
For the first 24 hours, nothing happens.
В принципе, никто ничем особым и не занимался.
The girls realize that life on TV isn't all it's cracked up to be. Thankfully, on the second day, the girls discover something to break the monotony, a box with daily challenges.
Были такие дурацкие задания, как, например, кто дольше пропрыгает на скакалке.
Alex wins, but to her surprise, there's no reward, and no one is eliminated. No one can figure out what is going on.
И у меня какие-то мысли начали появляться, то, что я не вижу никакого соперничества, в принципе. То есть мы только выполняли вот эти глупые задания, и все.
And the dumb challenges are soon overshadowed by a bigger problem. With no eliminations, the house is fast running out of food.
И атмосфера начала так накаляться.
By the 13th day, the last of the food has been eaten, and they are stuck in the middle of nowhere, with no stores or restaurants.
Такое было ощущение, что про нас вообще все забыли.
They try to order in food, but no one can get a signal. What is happening? Have the contestants been forgotten? Has the show been canceled? Or is this all part of the game?
Я думаю, что многие хотели покинуть этот проект, но тем не менее, я думаю, что все оставались по одной причине, то, что все хотели получить приз.
Finally, it becomes too much. One of the contestants, Christina Haggy, decides to leave.
Когда ушла Кристина с проекта, честно говоря, я немного завидовала. Но потом я посидела, подумала, как бы если я уже прошла через все это, может быть, в этом весь смысл заключался.
Alex is sure this is all part of the game. With Christina gone, she's one step closer to the prize. But just one day later, Alex and the other contestants get the shock of their lives.
Когда приехала полиция, я испугалась. Я просто была ошарашена, когда мне все это рассказали.
For the famed obsessed teenagers, it's the worst possible news. There never was a reality show. The girls were never going to be on TV.
Я просто не могла поверить, что такое могло случиться со мной.
But if there was never a reality show, who is watching on the other end?
Организовали обычные школьники.
Tech-savvy teenagers had wired an abandoned building and pulled off this elaborate prank.
Понимала то, что все, конец всем моим мечтам.
There's no telling how long the prank would have gone on if Christina hadn't left the show and gone to the police. The Russian media has a field day. It's the final insult in the most embarrassing experience of Alexandra's life.
Не знаю, это просто мне такой след в душе оставил, то, что я теперь не верю ничему, что происходит.
Contestants flock to a reality show that promises money and fame, not realizing the only viewers are a handful of pimple-faced boys playing a cruel prank. But did it happen? You'll have to wait to the end of the show to find out. But before then, check out this mini-myth. Mini-myth number 1004. Surprise. Despite being married, Sacramento, California resident Stephen Allen hit on every co-worker he could without much luck. But one day, around his birthday, his flirtations finally came to fruition when the secretary invited him over. Once there, she told him she just had to take care of something in the kitchen. Stephen got ready for her return by stripping and laying provocatively on the couch. When the door flew open, Steve was shocked to find the secretary joined by his entire family, who'd gathered to throw him a surprise party. But was it true or fake? It was fake. Although popular since the 1960s, there has been evidence of this foolish faux pas actually happening. On Urban Legends, we show you 3 incredible stories. You must decide which ones are true and which ones are urban legends. So far, you've seen the story of the Russian models that spent 3 weeks competing in a reality show that doesn't really exist. But is it real or fake? We'll let you know at the end of the show. Now it's time for our next story. It's called Oh Baby. Shelley Bararas always thought she was a good judge of character until she met a man named Steve.
I've always thought this story was just so unbelievable.
She'd soon wonder how her Prince Charming ended up entangling her in the worst ordeal of her life. Everything seemed hopeful when Steve entered Shelley's life in 1999. Though excited to focus on his new romance, he's not quite finished with his ex-wife, Viola.
They both filed for divorce. And so when we went to court, we thought that was the end of it.
But no sooner is the divorce finalized than Viola makes a shocking announcement.
She came out of the courtroom and said, well, I'm pregnant. And Steve was the father.
It's impossible.
I should have turned around and run then.
I haven't seen her.
Has Steve been sleeping with Viola behind Shelley's back?
Honestly, I didn't even know what to think.
He denies having anything to do with Viola and claims he couldn't be the father anyway.
He told me He'd had a vasectomy and retested. There was a 0% chance that Steve could be the father.
Shelley decides to give him the benefit of the doubt. Viola gives birth to a girl, and the courts demand a paternity test to determine whether Steve will have to start paying child support.
We just assumed it would all be okay.
But as it turns out, things are far from all right.
The DNA evidence seems quite conclusive.
The result of the paternity test was that Steve was the father. So they ordered Steve to start paying child support. It was devastating.
Stephen swears he's not the father, but tells Shelley he's too tired to fight anymore. Shelley believes him.
So I said it's time for me to step up and fight the good fight.
Shelley pushes for a second DNA test, but it backfires.
The second DNA test came back the same, that she was the mother and Steve was the father. So the court ordered even more child support.
They have no choice but to pay.
And it got to a point where he was paying over $1,000 a month for child support and spousal support. I knew in my heart that it wasn't true, but how do you fight a DNA test?
As the bills add up, Shelley struggles to find some way to fight back. Shelley develops a theory that Viola had somehow had the DNA test tampered with. It takes years, but she finally finds a lawyer who thinks he knows how to break the case.
And we ask for one simple thing: produce the child.
We should examine.
No one had ever seen this little girl.
If Viola is really making this all up, if this is all just a scam to get back at her ex, then she'll never be able to produce the child.
Based upon our motion that we filed with the court, a supervised DNA test, the court ordered the child be produced on Monday.
The court date arrives. Viola shows up to court, and to Shelley's horror, she's not alone.
When Viola arrived at court with the child, honestly, I didn't even know what to think.
After 2 positive DNA tests, and now this, Shelley knows it's all over. But that's when the unbelievable happens. An elderly woman bursts into the courtroom with a startling claim.
The grandmother was in the room saying that the child wasn't Viola's, it was hers. She was saying that Viola had stolen the child, basically, off the side of the street.
Order!
And that's when all hell broke loose.
An astonishing story starts to unfold. Viola Trevino had never been pregnant at all. No one had ever seen the baby. But the court took her word for its existence when she produced DNA evidence.
Viola Trevino was driving around and she saw a grandmother with a young child.
She offered them $50 and candy and a trip to meet Santa Claus. So they went with her.
But eventually, the grandmother realized something fishy was going on.
I have never seen anyone that is more cunning, more manipulative, and more deceitful than Viola Trevino.
Shelley's theory about Viola had been correct. The DNA had been messed with.
She had conspired with the DNA lab technician.
There was no baby. Viola was never pregnant.
This is the immaculate deception.
Case dismissed.
It's been a traumatic 5 years for Steve and Shelley, but at last, Viola's game is up.
I thought I was living in a fantasy land or something. It was crazy.
A man is saddled with tens of thousands of dollars of support for a child he's never seen, only to discover that his ex-wife had been conning him all along. But did it really happen? You'll have to wait until the end of the show to find out. But before then, check out this mini-myth. Mini-myth number 4011. Heaven-sent delivery. A special delivery forced New York postal worker Lisa Harrell far away from her regular route. While waiting for someone to sign for the package, she received an unexpected delivery herself. A 1-year-old baby fell from the heavens, well, a second-floor window, and landed straight into her arms. If she'd been on a regular route, no one would have been there to catch her and deliver her straight back to her shocked mom. Was it true? or false. It was true. The baby survived without a scratch and no charges were laid. On Urban Legends, we show you 3 incredible stories. You must decide which ones are crystal clear truth and which are earth-shattering lies. So far, you've seen the story of teens that tricked models on a fake reality show, and the story of the fake baby that almost bankrupted a couple. But which of these stories are the real thing? All will be revealed at the end of the show. Now it's time for our final story. It's called If You Can't Say Something Nice. Meet Kip Browning, a New England reporter who covered the passionate parable of Aaron and Meg Williams.
It's a mixture of disbelief and then just anger and rage.
All of it stemming from one wayward piece of mail. Aaron and Meg Williams were married in 1987, but by the mid-90s, their relationship had started to fall apart.
His wife was maybe a little bit more mature, maybe more grown up. He was behaving more like someone who wasn't married yet.
On January 27, 1995, their problems come to a head.
This was a real bone of contention. He liked poker with his pals. And that was something he wasn't going to give up.
While Aaron has a great time with his buddies, he's ignorant of the terrible gamble he's made.
The kids were sick, and Meg was expecting her husband to come and help. But he didn't.
He chooses his buddies and poker night over his family.
She can't believe he can be so selfish, and this is not the first time that this has happened. So he stayed out all night, drinking with his friends, and he didn't end up coming back till the morning. You can imagine the scene. He stumbles in drunk.
After years of putting up with her inattentive husband, Meg's had enough.
They have this massive fight, and she just blows up at him. She jumped in the train, took her kids, headed to Massachusetts to be with her mom.
Meg can barely hide her rage and despair.
She decides she's gonna write a letter and she's gonna just vent. She doesn't care at this point. She just writes it.
But in the heat of the moment, Meg confesses way more than she should.
When she gets there, she mails the letter. She has no second thoughts. Her life's gonna be over, but she doesn't care.
Later that night at her mom's, Meg starts to regret sending the letter.
She's not ready for her marriage to be over. Then she realizes she's made a mistake. She needs to do something to make sure that her husband doesn't get this letter. She thinks maybe I can get back before that letter arrives. She gets her kids up at 5. She gets back on the train, goes back to Rhode Island, and goes back to her house.
Despite her desperate dash, it appears that Meg's too late. The mailman is already there.
She walks in to see Aaron opening the letter, the one that's going to end her marriage. But guess what? It's not the letter. It's a different letter. She's overcome with relief and elation. You know what? She apologizes to him, and he apologizes to her.
Meg and Aaron decide to make a commitment to their marriage. But for it to work, Meg has to ensure that her husband never receives the letter.
She stocks the mailbox every day for the next few days, but this letter just doesn't arrive. 2 months go by, and she realizes it's clear that this letter is lost.
The more time passes, the better things get.
It's almost as if this letter not showing up had this miraculous result of making their relationship better.
12 years go by, and the Williams are planning on seeing out their days together. But on one particular October afternoon, fate has a different plan.
Aaron looks at the mail and sees this beaten-up letter and recognizes his wife's handwriting, but it's from 1995, and the address is their old address from their previous house. It's been forwarded to their new address. So he opens the letter, and he can't believe what he's reading, because this is the letter that she wrote 12 years ago in a rage.
Convinced that she had nothing to lose, Meg had used a letter to reveal some shocking confessions. But what could be so bad that she'd gone to such lengths to intercept it?
Guess what? The youngest child isn't even Aaron's. She's had an affair with Aaron's friend that's his friend's kid. He confronts his wife, and she confesses that everything in the letter is true. After 12 years, this letter has come back to haunt her.
No one will ever know what happened to the letter for those 12 years, but the Williams will never forget the day it decided to show up.
He was gone. He was not coming back. The relationship was over.
A lost letter turns up, leaving a marriage in ruins and a family torn apart. But is it true? Or did we betray you? It's time to reveal the truth about our three incredible stories. First up, it's the tale of the Russian reality show that was all just an elaborate prank. But is it fact or fiction?
На самом деле, эта история со мной не приключалась никогда, and this is a fake.
While this story isn't true, a similar stunt was pulled off in Turkey, where a group of women were tricked into a fake reality show. Then is the tale of the woman who fooled everyone into paying to support a child that didn't exist. But is it fact or fiction?
My name is Shelley Barreras, and my husband Steve and I paid child support for 5 years for a fake baby. And this is a true story.
Steve and Shelley won a healthy settlement from the company responsible for the botched tests that allowed this crime to go on for so long. Finally, it's the tale of a letter that shows up 15 years late and destroys a happy marriage. But is it fact or fiction?
I am a real reporter, but this story is fake.
Lost letters are popular in TV and books, but in real life, letters rarely get lost. That's the end of our episode called The Terrible Truth. Did you get caught off guard by the lies, or did you perfectly predict the truth? Don't worry if you couldn't. You'll get another chance to separate fact from fiction in the next installment of Urban Legends.